dance with an entrepreneur, both in the decision-making process of funding a startup and then in working with those startups, what are the necessary qualities that make a good venture capitalist? Some of the talents that have been mentioned to me by VCs, one, would you trust your gut instincts and feelings that happen in the relationship as signs about what's happening in the business or the startup? Or two, would you manage by influence or persuasion? So they're two of the modus operandus that I've been told VCs would influence or connect with the entrepreneur.
So here's what I would say about it.
Okay.
To me, there are two core qualities that make great VCs versus not so great VCs.
Yep.
Actually, there's three. There's number one, which I can't map for you, which is, are you really good at picking investments?
Yes.
Let's leave that one aside.
Yeah.
Success tends to breed success, right?
Yes.
But the two core qualities for me are being a good mentor.
Right.
Is a difficult thing. And being a good mentor relies on a true ability to listen and to show empathy and to not focus on you, but focus on the business at a fairly fundamental level.
Right.
The people who are good VCs that I've seen being good in boards are guys who fundamentally take the time to listen, understand, go deep before they'll trust their gut. Because ultimately, data can only take you so far. If you're entirely data-driven, people can pull the wool over your eyes very easily.
Yes, yes.
It's human nature in our businesses that make them go wrong. But I mean, the ability to empathize, listen, analyze information, and take the time to really integrate what a business is trying to do.
Yes.
Before you come to diagnostics.
Yes.
And without coming with preconceived notions is, for me, a core trait of the people that I think are outstanding.
Okay.
That would be number one. Number two is, whether you lead by influence or persuasion, I think there is some VCs who have an ability to influence outcomes and some who don't.
Right.
And those who don't usually try and do too many things, don't create a following within the company or amongst the board members as to what they're trying to achieve.
Right.
And have no ability to fundamentally move things along.
Okay.
By the way, sometimes, and this is where it gets difficult, sometimes a company has to change. An entrepreneur is going to hit a wall. And there is an art in getting both the person to realize and internalize
Yes.
the fact that they have a problem, and at the same time applying enough pressure
Yes.
that the problem is being taken seriously.
Yes.
And this is where there is a real fine line between VCs trying to run the business,
Yes.
disastrous, and the ability to point an entrepreneur in the right direction.
Right.
I will tell you that for me, there's a third skill which I think we should focus on.
Yes.
Is the VC willing to put his proverbial cojones on the line for business? Now, I just made a completely non-female centric statement, I apologize, but are you willing to take the bullet on behalf of the company?
Right.
The number of times where I've seen somebody come in, put some money on the table, and then not stand up for that business when the time comes in front of their partnership or whatever it may be when the going gets tough.
Right.
And then essentially they start arbitraging their internal perception inside their firm versus what may be right for the company and an ability to take risk on behalf of the company.
Right.
This is not a skill per se, but if I was an entrepreneur, I would watch really carefully as to whether somebody, when they believe in my project,
Yes.
take a risk on me rather than optimizing their own outcome.
Okay. Okay, that's a really good point.
And so do you have basically a venture capitalist or an investor of any ilk that is willing to take a real risk on you and will fight your corner if they feel that it's the right thing to do?
Yes. It's also sounds like commitment too, some sort of commitment and follow through, yeah. There.
Yeah, I think, the thing with startups is they take 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years to come to fruition.
Yes.
All of them will go through a really tough time.
Yes.
They'll go through they'll go close to bankruptcy.
Yes.
Some of the core execs, they'll
Yep.
acquisition that was planned will fall through, whatever it may be. There's always going to be a time when the going gets really tough and when you think you won't make it. And it is in these periods that you find out what people are really like.
Yes.
I'm in a tough spot. Are they sticking with me because they still believe in the project? Are they taking advantage financially from the situation? Or are they giving me a fair deal because they understand that in the long term, that is what matters?
Yes.
There's a whole host of issues I've seen arise in tough times when you realize some people just don't have the backbone to support these businesses through tough times.
Yes, thank you. I've followed your blog for some time now, as I've said, and you've written some inspiring and enlightening posts. And I noted the post-rise of the European super angel. And I'm just going to quote you, poor European entrepreneurs, they can only dream of super angels, salivate from afar about the land of Ron Conway, the cool shirts of Saka, and the awesome dollar power of AngelList, whilst they're stuck with old school business angels or fee charging networks, whilst European VCs, never a risk-taking breed as we know, have all retreated back to the safer havens of venture growth, in inverted commas. They can only wish there was a seed bubble. No wonder what that governments feel there is an equity gap they need to fill, or that entrepreneurs feel compelled to leave for the promised land. Everyone wants to be Bart Decrum with better glasses like mine, move over there and make it happen. Could you give any advice, Fred, or encouragement to European startups who are facing even more challenging difficulties raising venture in this current economic climate?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is write shorter sentences because I realize it's a bit of a mouthful.
I think they're very descriptive and there's great imagery there.
Thank you. Well, so listen, the purpose of the post, as it goes on, was to say, actually, there are a number of really good initiatives there that have two benefits. A, they give money faster to younger projects, and B, they are typically more accessible. So there's a new ethos of accessibility, which means you can actually get to these people fairly quickly, by being smart about how you leverage your social networks.
Yes.
Now, having said that, the reality of it is that, even I'm almost thinking about writing a follow-up post because, yes, we have Kima and Genia Capital in France and, Atomico, etc.
Yes.
But the reality is the majority of angel money you're going to get to is still really slow, and it's not socially connected, and it's sometimes more painful to get $100,000 out of these guys than it is to get, a couple of $1 million from a venture capitalist, and oftentimes actually more painful. So I think the reality of that marketplace is that it lacks liquidity. However, and the liquidity tends to be highly concentrated. So my advice to the European entrepreneurs would be, you just follow this path to money because they're relatively narrow. Seedcamp, Atomico just did the Founders Conference in Dublin.
Right.
Techstars is mulling about whether to come over to Europe, but there's sort of a bunch of well-identified avenues into this kind of fast, quote-unquote, early-stage funding you can get to. And I find the European entrepreneurs are not aggressive enough about asking for help and asking for intros.
Yes.
I sometimes still today, I get emails over the transept from people where, I'll take the time to read whenever I can, and most of the time I do.
Yes.
Even though they come without an intro. And, sometimes I have an obvious touch point that I can identify that they haven't used.
Right.
So, there's LinkedIn, you can go on Hashable these days. You can use the Seedcamp mentors, which are kind of easy to get to. You can use my blog, whatever it may be.
Yes.
I mean, I'm getting a little bit tired with the notion that, early stage entrepreneurs cannot get to the money because it's getting way easier to get to that cash. Now, is Europe below critical mass? You bet. Should I go and talk to Dave McClure and try and get on Angel List, even though I'm based in whatever it may be?
Yes.
Yes, I think you should. I think you should absolutely go to the US and try and leverage these funding channels because Europe's subcritical mass, and Europe has a lot of sleepy people doing early stage investing.
Yes.
There's some good progress, there's some good projects coming up, but the reality is it remains slow.
Yes, you definitely do have to be a little bit even more adventurous over there. And, you know, just like myself, when I won that spot on the funder.com and came over, you just have to step totally outside the box and just go for it. So that's good advice.
The other thing I would say is, so here's a typical Europe phenomenon. You find a great guy in Germany, and you find another great guy in France, and they're working on essentially the same segment. Neither of them is completely backable on their own, but they both managed to find a way to get to government money.
Yes.
And hence you have two companies started in both markets. They both do reasonably well. They both raised venture finance, and now you have two proper competitors in separate markets, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
What I've found very, very often is that sometimes, you know, you wish you had stronger founding teams.
Yes.
And the US is much, much better at putting together stronger founding teams.
Yes. I agree. Yes, the networks are much better here. Thank you so much, Fred, for your time and definitely for all your fantastic feedback. I really, really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'll speak to you soon, and good luck out there.
Thank you, Fred. Bye.